Welcome to Tribe Triathlon, the podcast for athletes who don't just train and race, they belong. Whether you're chasing a new PR, dialing in your race day, or just love all things triathlon, you're in the right place. Each episode provides actionable insights to improve your next training session or race. My name is John Mayfield, and I am a seasoned triathlon coach with years of experience guiding hundreds of athletes from their first long course event all the way to World Championship qualifications. So rack your bike, lace up your shoes, and let's get ready to train smarter, race stronger, and thrive within the tribe. This is Tribe Triathlon. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Tribe Triathlon podcast. I've gotten great feedback from the last several episodes. Really glad that the Four Horsemen has connected with you, and I really hope that that is going to be a useful resource for you as you are racing, as we head into, especially next season, we're kind of winding down the year now. But not only is that information relevant for race day, a lot of it is relevant for your training sessions over these next several months, but specifically dialing in those protocols so that you're able to nail each one of those metrics as you head into your next race. My hope is that you will head into your next race with an even higher level of confident not only that your training has been great and then you're in great shape and you've built a tremendous amount of potential, PR potential, world qualification potential, but now you also have a high level of confidence in your ability to go out and realize that potential. Again, that race car is there on the start line and it's up to you to drive it. I have absolute confidence that if you apply those things that we discussed over those last couple episodes, you're absolutely going to crush your race and execute and realize a very high potential of your potential. So we've got a couple great episodes lined up. We're going to start kind of another series here that we're going to be going through. But once again, I really want to hear from you. What are the topics that you would like to see covered? What are the things that you have questions about? What are the things that triathletes can improve upon? What do you need information on? I will do my best either to speak to it from my own education, experience, those sorts of things. But at the same time, I also have a great lineup of guests that are going to be coming over the next couple weeks, next couple months. So I am super excited for these guests to come on. Some really great personalities that all have some level of connection to the triathlon world. Some are right in the middle of it. Others are a little more on the fringe, but are going to contribute to our training and racing. So very excited for these guests that are going to be coming on the podcast here over the next couple weeks, next couple months. But once again, please let us know what are those things that you would like to see addressed, and we will absolutely do our best to do that. Stay active in the social media groups, whether it be Facebook or through Instagram, and gotten great response to Tribe Coaching. Again, so excited to be working with many new athletes, lots of really ambitious goals set for the remainder of this year and into next year. So if you are interested in that, go to the website, check it out, tribetraining.net, and let us know if you have any questions. If you'd like to set up a call to discuss that, more than happy to do so. All right, so as we get started today, diving in, going to talk about one of my favorite things, and that's training camps. We're headed into, currently it's the fall, headed into the winter, and spring is on the horizon before we know it. And for the last, I don't even know how many, 10 plus years, I've always done training camps in the springtime. So it's kind of around that time I start to think about it, start planning. I've done tons in my home state of Texas, both on the coast and up in the hill country. Beautiful locations with great opportunities for training. Other states, I've done camps in Utah and Florida and others. So I really enjoy the opportunity to go out and train in these locations. I enjoy the opportunity to get to connect with athletes for a couple days. It's kind of like summer camp back in the day where you meet these folks, spend a couple days with them, and leave as best friends. So one focus of training camps is volume. You'll see a lot of camps out there that they may be like a 3-day camp, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, something like that, 3 to 4 days, and they're going to pack in as much volume in those 3 to 4 days as possible. It may be a 3-day camp, and you may have 20 hours of training in that 3-day camp. So the intent of that camp is basically just to get in as much volume as possible. It's a super concentrated section or time period of training with the intent of again, just doing a whole bunch of training and then obviously recovering from it thereafter, making those adaptations and then getting back to a more consistent routine of training. Tribe camps are a little different. All the camps that I do, I always prioritize education. So what I would rather do in the 3 or 4 days that I have to work with a group of athletes, instead of putting you through just a ton of swimming, cycling, running, strength training, all that kind of stuff, I would rather spend that time educating the attendees on all these different things that we do. There are so many things that go into our triathlon experience, our racing. So I'm passionate about educating triathletes. So that's really what the focus of Tribe camps is. Now, we still do plenty of swimming, cycling, and running, but it's always with a emphasis on education. So lots of talks in there, lots of education, and then we have those immediate opportunities to go out and apply what we've talked about. If we talked about, say, run drills, we'll go out and we'll do some run drills, and then we'll go for a run and see what are those implications, what are those applications of those run drills that we did on our next run, and so to speak. Or we may talk about best ways to transition, and then we'll practice that. We'll go through, we'll run some transition scenarios, and how can you be most efficient in your transition. So that's kind of what the Tribe camps look like. So we'll go over some sport-specific skills, so swimming, cycling, running. Always a great opportunity to spend some time one-on-one with athletes in the pool, working on their swim technique. Others are more of a course recon, so maybe it's a big race that is coming up, and it's an opportunity to go out and actually train on the course to get a feel for what you're going to experience on race day. Again, I recently moved to Nashville, Tennessee. I'm just up the road from Chattanooga, where 2 big races happen every year. So it is definitely on the short list to have a training camp out there in Chattanooga. So if you're racing either the 70.3 or the Ironman, we're going to do that. We're going to train as much as possible in the area. So not only can you get in those opportunities to learn, but also get that real world experience of what are you going to experience on race day, and all the better to plan your things like your pacing, your nutrition, where are the personal needs bags, and all those kinds of things. When you actually go and see it, it's going to be all the more beneficial as you go and do all of your planning. And then we have general training information. So again, some of those just applicable things. What are the things that maybe it's if you're coming up on an Ironman event, what are the things that you're going to put in your gear bags, your personal needs bags, those kinds of things. Or maybe it's just general information about swimming, cycling, running, transition, recovery, all those kinds of things. So lots of stuff go into our camps. And of course, I wouldn't do it if we didn't have lots of fun. That's kind of like top. It's safety is number one. Number two is fun, and then everything else is kind of falls in place. But so they're always great opportunities for networking and making new friends, new training partners. Again, that's kind of an objective. It's kind of a goal. Throwing all the way back to like summer camp when we were kids, and after a couple of days, you left with a new best friend, new pen pal for us that are a little bit older. But nowadays, lots of social media friends. Did a camp, many years ago, and there were two ladies there that had never met. And I think they ended up sharing a hotel room, splitting the cost of that. And they actually came out best friends. And to this day, they still go on summer vacations together with their families and all that. So super cool. So you never know what's going to come of a camp. So definitely looking forward to planning those out. Again, a little early in the year, but those wheels are starting to progress. Again, we've just launched the podcast, just relaunched Tribe Coaching. So a lot of things going on, but definitely going to start to plan out some of these camps for the new year. So question to you guys, where would you like to see a Tribe camp? I was in Panama City Beach for Ironman Florida a couple weeks ago, and I had not been in Panama City Beach long when I said, I have got to do a training camp here. I've talked about it for years. It lends itself perfectly for a camp. Plenty of opportunities for swimming, cycling, running. It's a super cool location with lots of the other stuff to do. So that's way up there along with Chattanooga. So where would you like to see a camp? What would you like to do at the camps? What are things that you've done at past camps that you really found to be incredibly valuable and would suggest that we include in these camps as well? So want to hear from you. Like everything, we're always looking for your impact, your feedback, your input. So what are those things that you would like to see, or where would you like to see a camp hosted? Chime in on the Tribe socials. Again, the Facebook group is there, Instagram. Submit your information through the website. Whatever it is, we want to hear from you. So last week, we introduced our first of 3 episodes around swimming, cycling, and running. Obviously, it's a triathlon podcast, so what else are we going to talk about? But we're going to continue to dive into the fundamentals. This is going to be a very high-level discussion of each one of the sports that we so dearly love. And obviously, as we go on, we're going to get much more into the weeds, much more granular as we approach these different topics. But the intent of this is just to kind of set a baseline with some high-level stuff, some high-level information that's really going to set up some discussions as we head into the future. So as far as the bike, we're going to be discussing some cycling fundamentals, and those are going to include technique, training, strength training, and gear. And then we're also going to discuss some common mistakes that are made in cycling and provide some tips that will help you along your way. So as we move into a discussion of our cycling technique, last time we discussed swimming technique, and we spent a whole lot of time talking about swim technique. We will continue to spend a lot of time talking about swim technique, because if you don't have the technique pretty darn close to perfect, you're never going to be a great swimmer. Swimming is all about the technique. It's much less of a power sport. It is technique, 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 and that is why the little kids continue to lap me in the pool, is because they have much better technique. They don't have the power I do, but their technique is really dialed in. So that's what we want to do. We want to be able to have that same level of technique of those little kids, but also apply the power that we are able to generate. Now, when it comes to cycling, it's an inverse. There is not a whole lot of technique involved in cycling, much more emphasis on power. The way to produce your fastest swim splits is to swim with great technique and apply as much power as you can. Kind of the opposite with cycling. The way to set up yourself for the fastest bike split possible is apply as much power as possible to those pedals and maintain the little bit of technique that we have. So kind of the inverse here of what we're doing. And again, I think it's one of the things that really makes our sport great is we're not just a power sport. We're not just a technique sport. It really brings everything together. Now, the primary thing when we talk about cycling technique is going to come down to the pedal stroke. Basically, your upper body is pretty stable, not a whole lot of movement, not a lot going on there. It really all revolves around the pedal stroke. So what we want to establish in our pedal stroke is a smooth 360-degree stroke. Now, obviously, we are spinning those pedals 360 degrees. There's really not anything else we can do unless we go a little bit backwards, but obviously we're not doing that. But what I'm really speaking to here is having a smooth 360-degree stroke that we're able to apply as much power as possible on a continuing basis. So every part of that cycle stroke, we are applying power, generating power through the drivetrain, and moving us forward. So as we do that, the main thing we want to see here is articulation in the ankle. So obviously the legs are moving up and down.
But where we really see the technique here, and oftentimes a mistake, is a lack of articulation in the ankle. So we want the foot to stay relatively flat throughout this pedal stroke. Now, that doesn't mean it stays completely horizontal to the ground the entire time. It will spend a good amount of time parallel to the ground. What we don't want to see are those extreme angles where the heel is either dorsiflexed or plantar flexed, where the toe is pointing or the heel is dragging. Your most efficient stroke is going to come from a relatively flat foot. And that is going to help us remove dead spots. So again, what we're looking to do here is generate power to those pedals for as much of that pedal stroke as possible. And when we really get good at it, then we are truly able to constantly apply power, remove those dead spots where all of that energy that we are expending is then transferring to the bike, through the drivetrain, down to those tires, down to the ground. Another high point of technique is to optimize our cadence. So this is one of those things we have control over. So what we want to do here is have a cadence that promotes consistent, smooth stroke. So this is going to feed in to that pedal stroke. If our cadence is too high, it's going to be difficult to maintain that smooth 360-degree stroke. Likewise, if the cadence is too low, it's going to be difficult to maintain that smooth 360-degree stroke where we, again, are applying force to the pedals through as much of that pedal stroke as possible. So what we want to do here is really dial in and determine what is our optimal cadence. So it really is somewhat of an individualized number, but there are also some guidelines that we want to kind of stick within. It's a relatively large range. It's going to depend on the cyclist, your abilities, your power numbers, your terrain that you're racing on. But I will say, especially for the flat sections, kind of leveling the playing field there, so to speak, most cyclists should have a cadence somewhere between, I would say, about 75 RPM and 95 RPM. So again, pretty big range there. And really what it comes down to is finding your optimized crossover point of your power and your heart rate. So what we will see is as we have a higher cadence, we are generally going to see a higher heart rate. As we spin faster, it's going to shift some of that burden over to the cardiovascular system. It's a fast movement, and that's going to tax the cardiovascular system. So we're going to see a higher heart rate for those higher cadence efforts. Inverse of that, if we have a lower cadence, maybe in that 75 range or even lower, we are generally going to see a lower heart rate for that cadence, but that is going to shift that burden over to the muscular system. And yes, I know the heart is a muscle, but kind of speaking more so to those leg muscles specifically, where they're working a little bit harder, but the inverse of that is it's going to result in a lower heart rate. So what we don't want to do is burn out either of those. Obviously, we need to maintain a relatively low heart rate throughout the race. We need to save as much of that energy in our legs as possible for the entire bike split, as long in addition to into the run. So do some testing. And find what is optimal for you. For me personally, I am somewhere between 80 to 85 RPM when I'm racing long course on a primarily flat course. So what that allows me to do is maximize my power output while maintaining the heart rate that I want to without overly taxing my leg muscles. So what I will see is if I get above that 85, if I start approaching 90 to 95, I will begin to see my heart rate creep up a little bit. And it's not necessarily at a higher power. So I'm not really getting any advantage from that additional cadence. So it's just my body working harder to hold a higher cadence without any additional power output. Inverse is also true. If I drop down to 75 to 70, I might see a decrease in my heart rate, but I'm definitely going to see an increase in my rate of perceived effort. It is going to be harder for me to continue to turn those pedals. So again, I'm working harder, feeling it more in my muscles, but not necessarily really realizing a drop in heart rate, or at least a sufficient drop in heart rate to justify the expense to the leg muscles. So where is it for you? It's a little bit different for everyone, and of course, it's good to train. There are multiple scenarios out there where you need to be able to hold the higher cadence, you need to be able to hold the lower cadence. But what is your default go-to optimized cadence? So the next part of technique that we're going to discuss is not really technique, but I'll land the plane here at the end. But it's to optimize your fit of the bike. So when you are getting fit, and I always recommend working with a fitter that knows triathlon, that knows triathletes, that understands the unique demands of triathletes in our cycling, in our transitioning, in our running, because you can have some bike fitters that are, they know road cycling, mountain bikes, gravel, all that. They are the best fitter out there in those, but if they don't know triathlon specifically, they are not going to give you the best fit possible for your triathlon bike. So when you are getting fit, and that's not an if or all, that is kind of one of those hard truths that you absolutely need to go get fit, but you also need to make sure that the person who's doing your fit is knowledgeable, experienced in fitting triathletes, and knows those needs that we have. So the order of priority when we go and have these fits done is paramount is comfort. We want to make sure that we are able to get comfortable in the position that we are put in. Now, it might take a little bit of time to get comfortable. It may take some adjustment. And in fact, most times it will. It'll feel awkward, especially depending on how many adjustments are made and to what degree those adjustments are made. It may feel really weird. It may be difficult to maintain at first, but I would say if you go and get fit and within, I would say 3 or 4 weeks of consistent riding, if you're not comfortable, if you're not able to maintain that position, then you need to go back and have those adjustments made. But I would say give it a couple weeks just to make sure that you are adjusting to those changes, even developing some strength around those. So it may be a little difficult initially to maintain because your shoulders are getting tired, your neck is getting tired, but give it a couple weeks and hopefully that fit will feel more comfortable. But again, if not, go back and have that fitter make those adjustments. If you can't stay comfortable on the bike, you're not going to stay down in that aero position, and then everything else we're discussing is all for naught, because all of this is dependent upon you staying in that aero position as much as possible. We don't have the advantages of road cyclists out there in the peloton, so we have to basically create our own aerodynamics. That's why we have time trial bikes. That's why we are fit to the positions that we are. So if you're not able to spend the vast majority of the time in that position, then it's not doing you any good. It doesn't matter how aerodynamic you are. If you're sitting up, you're not nearly as aero as you could be. The second consideration is power generation. So once you're comfortable, we want to then maximize what is the highest power output that you are able to generate, again, for a given heart rate or RPE. We want to maximize your power. So it's a combination of all these things. There are positions where you could very likely generate more power, but they're not aerodynamic positions or they're not comfortable positions. So it's finding the bike fit that is going to allow you to produce the highest power while staying comfortable. So it's kind of all working together. And then, of course, the thing that we're all chasing, the all thing we want to be super high are the aerodynamics. So that's going to be the tertiary thing that we're really considering is making sure it's comfortable, maximizing our power output, and then what can we do to be as aerodynamic as possible. So that's why one of the last things we may adjust is like bar height. So how far can we drop down? Now, lower isn't always more aerodynamic, but it's finding that optimal place where you're comfortable, you're generating high amounts of power, and you're staying aerodynamic. What we're seeing now is positions with a really tight elbow. The bars are set up in such a way that the elbows are very close, the wrists are very close. So that tends to be a more aerodynamic position, but is that comfortable for you? Again, we want to make sure you're comfortable before the aerodynamics. Now, it's great if you are comfortable and you're maintaining high power output. If we can then get you into those aerodynamic positions, that's fantastic, but it needs to be done in that order. So only once we have a truly optimized fit can we establish a proper pedal stroke. And this is more about things like your saddle height. Definitely needs to be right for you and for your leg length. If your saddle is either too high or too low, that's going to impede your ability to have that smooth 360-degree pedal stroke. Same thing with your saddle position. If it is too far forward, too far back, that is going to impact your ability to have a good, smooth pedal stroke as well. So all those things are going to go into establishing your fit and ensuring that you have a good 360-degree optimal pedal stroke. Next, we're going to move on to some drills that are going to help us to dial that in. And really, again, once our feet are bolted into those pedals, there's not a whole lot that we can do. But as discussed earlier, it's important to be able to vary your cadence. So we want to find that optimized cadence that's right for you for a given terrain. But we also want to be prepared for those scenarios where a higher cadence or a lower cadence is necessary. And we also want to reap the benefits of that. There are certain adaptations that are made, certain things that happen when we maintain these higher cadences or lower cadences. So it's important to vary the cadence throughout your session, but also as we do these drills. So single leg drill is also another great opportunity to really identify where are those dead spots in your stroke. When you first start doing these single leg drills, it is going to be very difficult to maintain a smooth 360-degree pedal stroke. You're definitely going to find out where those dead spots are, and that's okay. That is the point of these. So what we want to do here is really back off the resistance. These should be done at a very low power number, very little resistance. Really what we're trying to do here is learn where those dead spots are, where are the power spots as well, so we can emphasize that. But really what we're wanting to do here with these single leg drills is identify those dead spots in the stroke and then minimize those as much as we can. Now, we are a little bit inefficient here when we're doing these one-legged drills because we obviously are going to have that other foot applying force in those areas. But again, the more that each side, each foot, each pedal, each crank arm can be in sync and also be generating power, the better off we are. So really what we're looking to do there is not necessarily generate power from the right and from the left. We're just looking to maximize the amount of power that is sent down that chain and down to that cassette and transferring onto the road. So really the intent of these drills is twofold. Both the high cadence, low cadence drills, as well as the single leg drills, will help develop strength because they're hard. They're harder than your normal riding. So this is a kind of on the light side, but this can be considered a strength training, strength development exercise. So keep that in mind, especially as like your single leg drills become more efficient and you are now able to begin to maintain 360 degrees. Now, instead of doing that at that low resistance, low power number, start to bump it up to where now you're having to really work to continue to maintain that smooth pedal stroke for the 360 degrees. And yeah, it's going to start to burn pretty quick. So just like if you were doing a strength training exercise, you're going to experience that. You're also going to see that really with the low cadence work. So even drop that down, lower cadence and lower cadence, really using that as an opportunity to build strength within those very specific muscles that we are recruiting that generate power on the bike. And then another very important thing that these drills are going to do is help to establish neural paths. I will say this is probably most demonstrated on the high cadence pedaling. It is not that our bodies lack the ability to spin at that higher rate. There's often a miscommunication, we'll call it, between the brain and the legs in order to do that. So As we do it, the body then learns. It establishes neural paths from the brain down to the legs saying, here's what we want to do. Here are the muscles that we need to recruit. Here are the small little muscles that we need to recruit in order to spin faster. And as we do that, those neural paths are established, and it becomes easier and easier and easier because it becomes muscle memory. You now have those neural paths established that enable you to do that. So it's basically muscle memory. So we want to do this over and over and over, and that is going to not only allow us to spin those pedals faster, as we lower that cadence back to our default normal setting, it's going to be all the more efficient. We're going to have more muscles recruited, more muscles activated. So those are all good things as we head into the drills. So this next one, pretty obvious, is our training. And again, this is going to be just a glimmering vapor of how much we're going to discuss cycling training and all, but we want to hit it. So our primary focus in the training, all the training that we're doing, primary focus is on increasing FTP, that functional threshold power. Effectively, your FTP is just a metric that we use that demonstrates or quantifies how strong are you on the bike? How much power do you generate compared to, say, another cyclist? It's something that, especially when we quantify it with weight or qualify it with weight, we're able to make comparisons back and forth. But it's also a benchmark to see how much strength are you gaining on the bike. So generally accepted understanding of what that functional threshold power is the highest power you can sustain for 60 minutes. So generally, we don't do 60-minute tests to establish what that FTP is because no one wants to go out and hold their highest possible power for an hour. That's awful. So generally, what we do is a 20-minute power test. That is kind of the most accepted test across all of cycling. And then what we're able to do is take that 20-minute power and extrapolate it out to, if you can hold X for 20 minutes, what can you hold for 60 minutes? So there's an extrapolation of that 20-minute power out to the 60-minute power. But basically, again, the intent of the training should focus on not necessarily just increasing that number, but becoming as powerful, as strong of a cyclist as possible, as quantified by that FTP number. So this is going to be regardless of distance. Even if you are nothing but an Ironman distance athlete or even an ultra Ironman distance athlete, it's still going to come down to your functional threshold power. So regardless of distance, your FTP determines your bike split. You can have a tremendous amount of stamina. You can have the endurance to go for days and days and days, but that is not going to be indicative of how fast you can go. That's how far you can go. Your functional threshold power is going to tell you how fast we can go. And then we apply the endurance to that, and that gets us to the finish line. We are then going to want to increase aerobic efficiency secondary. So primary focus is FTP. Secondary focus is increasing aerobic efficiency. So aerobic efficiency is how well our cardiovascular system is able to work. Basically, the goal of aerobic efficiency is to be able to increase our output and minimize or reduce our input. So I often say that our power number is the output and the input number is our heart rate. So it's kind of showing the cost of what the power was. So that's what we're looking to do here with aerobic efficiency. While we are focusing on increasing our FTP, at the same time, we also want to decrease the cost of that. So that's where this aerobic efficiency comes in. So this is primarily done through low intensity cycling, basically maintaining a low heart rate and allowing a host of adaptations that only happen at these lower intensities. So this is generally done through time at zone 2. There is a multitude of adaptations that only happen when we are training at that zone 2 heart rate. So that is utilizing our aerobic system as opposed to our anaerobic system. So this is a state where we have adequate oxygen. That is that difference between aerobic or anaerobic is aerobic, we have adequate oxygen. Anaerobic, we are falling behind. We are then lacking the amount of oxygen necessary to maintain that status or that intensity. And we are also primarily utilizing fat here for our energy. Whereas once we cross over into those higher intensities, not only are we crossing over to a point where we are now insufficient in our oxygen supply, we are now also primarily depending on our carbohydrates, our glycogen, then for our energy. Now, there's a certain amount of crossover in between those, but that is kind of how this is quantified and defined, is that aerobic, easy effort, so to speak. And we can spend, and we will spend, an entire episode on these things discussing exactly what these adaptations are, what they benefit us, but this is definitely something that we're going to do. So that is our secondary input. So great thing about aerobic efficiency is the best way to do it is cycling, because it is necessary to maintain that low heart rate. It is more difficult to establish and build this aerobic efficiency while running, because running is more difficult to do. It is more physiologically taxing, and you're more susceptible to things like elevation and temperature and humidity. All those kinds of things can make it more difficult to maintain that easy intensity, that zone 2 heart rate. So cycling is great for this. It also doesn't have the impact of running. So we can generally spend a lot more hours every week on the bike cycling without the same injury risk, recovery demands, all those kinds of things as running. So cycling is a great opportunity to develop this aerobic efficiency. Now, we're going to do that on the run as well, but the aerobic efficiency that we develop on the bike is also going to translate over to the run and vice versa. So in this regard, the body doesn't really designate whether we're cycling or running. It just knows we're running at or we're functioning at a lower intensity, utilizing these different physiologies. And so that's why we're able to cross-train here so far as that goes. So once we have focused on building that FTP, once we have that, we only want to build stamina when necessary. So basically, as races approach that require us to build stamina, that is the time we are going to focus on that, primarily because there is an opportunity cost. If we are focusing on building stamina, that means we are not focusing on building threshold. They, to a certain extent, are mutually exclusive, and it is difficult to build both of them at the same time. We have a limited capacity, a finite budget, so to speak, of training stress and hours and ability to train. So where are we allocating those resources to? When we don't have to build stamina, we're going to focus on building that functional threshold. Then as races approach that require us to build that stamina, that's when we're going to begin to focus on that. So the way I kind of explain that is stamina is cheap, threshold is expensive. So I'll explain what I mean by that. Threshold is difficult and slow to increase. So as we are looking at those FTP numbers, we are not going to see big gains from month to month, big jumps. We're not going to see 20, 30 watts per month, at least not for long. Maybe if you've got some low-hanging fruit, in there, you may see those gains early on, but that is not sustainable, unfortunately. What you're going to begin to see, it may be as few as just 1 or 2 watts per month going up if you're repeating those tests. So it is very expensive. It's difficult to increase, difficult to build, but the good thing about it is once you build it, it tends to stick around. It's slow to go up, but fortunately, it's also slow to come back down. It will decrease if you don't continue to train and maintain it, but the rate at which it declines is relatively slow. Now, compare that with stamina. Stamina is much easier to build. So you can go from, say, doing 1 hour rides consistently, and that's all you do. Your longest ride is an hour. You can go from that 1 hour ride to, say, 5 hours if you're training for an Ironman. You can go from that 1 hour to 5 hours, so 5x increase in your training load. You can do that in a matter of months. Sometimes as little as 2 to 3 months, you can go from that 1 hour training ride to that 5 hour Ironman ride. So it is relatively easy to build that stamina. It builds much quicker, But unfortunately, it's also true that stamina decreases at a faster rate as well. So we build it up quickly, but if we don't continue to maintain those long sessions, that high training volume, we are going to lose that stamina relatively quicker, much quicker than that threshold is going to decline. So that is part of the reason we really want to focus on building functional threshold, and only then switching over to building stamina when we have to. So the objective is to produce the fastest bike split possible at the lowest physiological expense. So all of those things are kind of winding into this. So when we are out there on the bike, that is our goal, especially once we are out on the race course, to produce the fastest bike split possible at the lowest physiological expense. So basically it's how fast can we go and how fit can we get so that the body really isn't taxed. So it's all about putting all of these things together, again, to establish that fastest bike split at the lowest physiological expense possible. So now moving into strength training. Now, this is a huge opportunity that is often neglected. And if I'm being honest, I'll say this is just a note for me, because I am certainly guilty of this. Now, if that is applicable for you, then maybe we should go to the gym together. But huge opportunity in strength training, and I know I'm not the only triathlete that neglects the strength training and has over the course of my career. So really, our focus here in strength training is twofold. We want to increase the amount of power that our muscles can generate and reduce the fatigue that those muscles are experiencing as we are out there utilizing them on the bike. So what we're looking to do here is increase muscular endurance, and also reduce the propensity to cramp. So this muscular endurance is different than our cardiovascular endurance or our ability just to sustain an activity for long periods of time. This really speaks to the muscle itself. Is what is the amount of time that muscle can continue to engage and fire at a high level without fatiguing and then also cramping. That cramp is oftentimes a kind of an end result of a high level of fatigue. Once the muscle is fatigued to a certain state, then it will begin to cramp. So what we're looking to do here with this strength training is to not only increase the power in that muscle, we want to extend the amount of time that muscle can continue to create and sustain that power. And also we obviously want to hold off on the cramps as well. So in order to do this, we have to lift both heavy and high rep. So our heavy lifting is really where we are focusing on increasing the power in those muscles. So this is going to be lower reps, higher weight. This is kind of more of your traditional gym workouts, even though most of those guys in the gym are neglecting leg day. This is where we want to go and do the squats, the leg press, all those kinds of things where we're dealing with higher amounts of weight, lifting heavy. Again, that's going to help produce higher amounts of power from those muscles. But then more so on this muscular endurance side, this is where we want to get into high reps. So it's going to be a much lighter weight than we would be with the heavy lifting, but we're going to do it that many more times. So it's higher reps. That is going to help establish this muscular endurance in there. I recently did a sweat test on a guy, and as we were chatting, now this guy was big. He was quite muscular, and we were talking about his strength training regimen, and I'm sure he does plenty of these heavyweight, low rep exercises, but he was actually telling me he focuses on these high reps, and his high reps are sometimes in the hundreds, sometimes as much as 500 reps, which the guy was much buffer, looks much better without a shirt than I do, so I'm going to trust he knows what he's doing, but he's talking about doing like curls at reps of 500. So I don't know even what kind of weight I could do for 500, but it's working for him, obviously. But that's kind of an extreme case. Obviously, we don't need to get into the triple digits, but we want to get into those higher rep opportunities where basically what we're trying to do here is lift an amount of weight, an amount of time that is going to increase the amount of time that muscle can continue to operate. So we really want to focus when it comes to strength training for our cycling on the big three. So this is going to be the glutes, the hamstring, and the quad. So basically from knee to waist. This is where the vast majority of our cycling power is generated from. To a lesser extent, the calves are involved, but we're really not looking to overly engage the calves when cycling. It's certainly there. It's part of it, but we're not really generating force on those pedals from the calves as much, where the vast majority of that power is coming from glutes, hamstring, quad. So again, basically from the waist to the knee, that's where we're looking to do this, both with those heavy lifting as well as those light lifting. We don't want to neglect the shoulders, the back, and the core. We talked about this last time we were talking about swimming. So this is going to be a great crossover. We don't necessarily have to do separate swimming or cycling strength training sessions. Obviously, we're going to get it all at the same time, but the shoulder, back, and core are also going to help us sustain that aerodynamic position. So the stronger our shoulder, neck, back, core, the longer we're going to be able to stay in that aerodynamic position, the more comfortable we're going to be. And like we talked about earlier, the longer that we can stay in that aerodynamic position, the better off we're going to be. All right, moving on to gear. And again, we're going to talk lots and lots about gear coming up, but just a couple kind of basic fundamental things that we want to have on the gear side. Now, the number one thing, most important thing when it comes to cycling gear is a TT bike that fits you. So kind of two things here. It's the TT bike, time trial bike, triathlon bike, whatever you want to refer to it, that fits you. Now, different bikes have different geometries. A lot of it revolves around the length of the top tube, and you want to ensure that the bike that you are getting is going to fit for you. You can be the same size as someone and have a different fit. So I'm 6 foot tall, but I have really short legs. There are lots of people who are several inches shorter than me that our waist are basically level. So I have a longer torso, I have shorter legs. So if I were to be compared with another 6 foot athlete that had, say, even longer legs and a short torso, we could conceivably be on two completely different bikes, even though we are the same height. So oftentimes height is used as kind of a rough indicator as of either a particular brand or frame size, but be aware that there are certain caveats in there as well. If that bike is not fit to you, one, you're never going to be comfortable on it, and two, you're not going to be able to maximize the aerodynamic benefits of that bike. So it is unfortunately not as easy as just finding the coolest bike or the cheapest bike. It's all about finding that bike that's going to fit you best. And then to qualify it as a triathlon bike, time trial bike, road bikes are great, and I'm going to talk about that here in just a minute. You can use road bikes in these long course triathlons, but they're just not the same. There are not only the aerodynamic benefits that are going to result in higher speeds for the same amount of power that is applied, there is also physiological advantages. So we are going to run better off of a triathlon bike than we will a road bike. That primarily has to do with the seat angle, which then has implications of our hip angles. We are going to be able to breathe better. The lungs are going to be able to inflate easier when we are in this position that we're allowed to get into on the time trial bike. And the fact is, you can't get into the same position on a road bike as you can a time trial bike. Even if you have the clip-on aero bars, that sort of thing, there are some things you can do. You can adjust the seat position, sometimes even the seat angle to a certain extent. But our best fit, our best bike splits are going to come from utilizing a time trial bike, and the most important part of that is that it fits you. When it comes to triathlon bikes, aerodynamics trump weight. Oftentimes weight is demonized, so we try to do everything we can to reduce the amount of weight on our bike, but especially in what we are doing as triathletes, as a rule, aerodynamics is far more valuable than reducing weight. So that's kind of good for us, because a lot of times cyclists go and spend a whole lot of money for basically a component that operates the same but is a few grams lighter, there's a whole bunch of cost that necessarily we don't need to incur because we can just go with the heavier option and it's not going to be a cost to us. So in certain instances, actually that additional weight is going to be beneficial. So road bikes are a little different, especially those that are used in climbing. So yeah, if you're doing a lot of climbing, a lighter bike can certainly be advantageous. But also when you're surging, when you're part of a peloton and they're doing breakaways, or you have a different effects within that peloton that you're going to have to surge and slow down. That lighter bike is going to be more responsive. You're going to be able to accelerate a little quicker. But again, when it comes to holding a steady pace, that extra weight can actually help us. It's part of physics that weight, as it gets going, is going to help continue to maintain that speed. So when we're talking about our bikes here, obviously we don't want wasted weight, but when we're making these decisions, and we see this even like in our bike frames, our bikes weigh several pounds more than the road bikes. Whereas road bikes now, you can get them 15 pounds and lighter. Most tri bikes, once they're fit out with your deeper wheels and our hydration, all that, we're 20 pounds plus. So quite a bit heavier than those road bikes, but still going to be faster in those. So don't obsess over weight. And when you're making those decisions, always go with the aerodynamics over weight. So again, like we have those deep tubes on our bike frames. Those make the frame heavier because there's more material in order to create those deeper tubes. Same thing with the wheels. The wheels are lighter if we had just enough rim to hold the spokes. But we make that concession to have a heavier wheel in order to have it deeper. And obviously some of the heaviest wheels out there are those full disc, which are the most aerodynamic and in most cases the best wheel to run for a given course. So probably the one piece of gear that is going to be the most beneficial, and this is the first upgrade, first edition I recommend, is a power meter. So when you add that power meter to your bike, unfortunately, that bike is not going to be any faster. You're not going to be any faster. But the data, the information, the feedback that power meter is going to provide you, that is going to make you faster. And what I love here is this is not like a set of wheels that you are going to immediately see faster results from. But you're also going to see that's only going to be whatever time gain you get from adding those wheels. That's as fast as they're ever going to be. Any other aerodynamic upgrades we make, yeah, you may get a little bit faster, but it's never going to be faster than that. With something like a power meter, this is more so an investment in you as an athlete, you as a cyclist. So really it's unlimited potential. Very quickly, as you begin to integrate training and racing with that power meter, you will begin to see those results. You will see improvements in your bike performance. And again, there's really not a limit as to how much we can continue to gain throughout that. Along those same lines, a smart trainer can provide those same benefits. Smart trainers have power integrated in there. So if you are using your bike on that smart trainer, you'll have these advantages. Now, the drawback is if you're not on that trainer, that smart trainer isn't doing you any good. So we'll come back. We'll talk about power meters a lot more. But if you have to choose one, I say choose the power meter first and then add the smart trainer when you can. But just having that power number is going to be very beneficial to your bike training and racing. Next is relatively simple, and it's easy aero. So this is not going out and spending tons of money on a $2,500 rear disc because it's aerodynamic. These are small things that are much cheaper, much easier. So things like your bottle setup. There are lots of options both for front end hydration as well as those behind the saddle. Those up front integrate into such a way that it's occupying some space, that not only are you being productive by being able to carry your hydration, your nutrition, but it actually has aerodynamic advantages as well. Aero helmets are a super easy addition. Those used to come at a cost of being hotter, more uncomfortable, but as of late, they've gotten much better as far as their ventilation goes. So that's really one of the few things that triathletes can pretty much universally agree on, is that aerodynamic helmet is going to be much faster than a traditional road helmet. And then things like your kit, making sure that kit fits properly. And there are even some designs within the kits that are able to make those kits more aerodynamic. So it's choosing that aerodynamic kit over a less aerodynamic kit. And then things like calf sleeves. So basically, it's kind of like that golf ball principle. We'll see that this on wheels as well, where they have dimples, which increase the surface area. So that's why golf balls are dimpled. Is it increases the aerodynamics of that ball. It holds the air on the surface for longer periods of time. Therefore, it's more aerodynamic. Same reason we have the deeper tubes on the bike frame. Same reason why that solid disc wheel or deeper wheels work faster or more aerodynamic than the thinner wheels. It's because the amount of time the air spends attached to that surface. So even something like a calf sleeve with the little aerodynamic ridges in there, it's not a ton of time, but it's better than nothing, and it's super easy, super cheap to do. Another gear upgrade I often recommend are upgrades to the cockpit. So we've seen a lot of development here in the last few years, and I'd say if nothing else, they're super cool looking. But I would say the main advantages of some of these cockpit upgrades is primarily increased comfort, as well as increased aerodynamics. So used to, everyone was riding on small elbow cradles, and what we see now are different cockpits that have much greater surface area. So we're able to spread out the weight of our arms, the weight of our upper body across a greater space. So it reduces the pressure on there. So there's less fatigue, more comfortable. And then just the way they come together increases the aerodynamics. So those are some relatively inexpensive but highly effective upgrades. Something here, this is a little bit controversial. Not everybody agrees on this, but I've had really good luck too with ceramic bottom brackets and pulley wheels. It is one of those things that out of the box, they are going to be faster than the steel counterpart options. But the biggest benefit, I would say, and why it justifies the higher cost, is the ceramic bottom brackets and pulley wheels are going to last longer. They're going to be more resistant to wear, and that is really where we see the degradation of performance. Those steel components are going to wear out faster. As they wear out, they're going to have higher friction, and they're not going to be as fast. So those ceramic components not only are going to be faster out of the box, they're going to be faster for longer periods of time because they're more resistant to wear. And then one of the things I'll say a million times on the podcast, a clean bike is a fast bike. The very first thing you should do, first piece of gear you should get is an old towel and a bottle of chain lube. It's very simple to keep the bike clean, especially that drivetrain. That's where we're going to see drivetrain loss. That's where we're going to make noise. Keep the drivetrain clean, and you're going to have a fast bike. So a couple common issues we see on the bike. This is where I call this twinkle toes. I see this a lot. Basically, this is a kind of an extreme pointing of the toe. So as the foot is coming around to the front of that pedal stroke, that's really the power phase where we're generating the most amount of power on there. This is it's a high heel and a pointed toe down. So I call that twinkle toes. This is really where we're going to over-engage the calf. Oftentimes, we will see implications of this on the run, like all the other things we've discussed. So if you're experiencing calf cramps on the bike or on the run, it may be related back to having this, where you're over-engaging the calf. Like we said a few minutes ago, it's primarily knee and up that is generating the power, so we're not looking to the calf primarily to generate power here on the bike. So we want to make sure that is more relaxed. We talked about this before too, in having that articulation in the ankle that's going to keep the foot relatively flat. So as you're doing that, making sure, kind of a cue that a lot of people use is as when you're at the bottom of the pedal stroke, think about like if you had mud on the bottom of your shoe and you were trying to wipe that mud off the shoe on like a mat at the front door. So that's really what we're looking to do, is to keep that foot flat. And that's largely throughout the entire pedal stroke. So another common issue is that poor fit. Already discussed kind of the implications of that, why we want a good fit. I see that way too much. So make sure that you are getting a good professional quality fit. A couple of aero mistakes that I see a lot. One is kind of misuse of the top tube. Now, a lot of bikes now come with an integrated storage on the top tube, which those are great. Those are taken into consideration with the aerodynamics of the bike, and those are great. But I still see folks that are taping copious amounts of gels to their top tube, and they'll have like a top of the line $15,000 bike, fully decked out, deep front wheel, disc in the back, everything is aero, and then they'll have like a dozen gels taped to their top tube. There's one of the things they found in the wind tunnel, there are a few things that are less aerodynamic than having those gels on your top tube. So all that money that you spent that looks super cool, it's actually being offset by that. So make sure that your top tube is clean, and really from there, also like your frames as far as like your bottle cages go. A circle, oval shape is the least aerodynamic shape out there. So unfortunately, that's the same shape that our bottles come in. And pretty much every bike frame has the ability to add cages to the down tube, to the seat tube, but those are going to go a long way to offset some of those aerodynamic advantages of having that bike frame. So as I discussed a minute ago, make sure you're looking into those things like the rear hydration systems, the front hydration systems. Those are going to be far more aerodynamic. Triathletes are known for having poor handling skills. This not only is going to impact our splits, but more so it's a safety concern, both to us as the rider, as well as those riders around us. And I would say the primary skills that we oftentimes are lacking are the abilities to descend and make a simple U-turn. I'm guilty of this. I have to make sure I go out and practice a few times, especially if I'm on a course where I know there are multiple U-turns. Sometimes they're tight, like on a 2-lane road, you got to make that U-turn. For all the benefits of our triathlon bikes, U-turning is not one of them. It is much easier, much quicker to make a U-turn on a road bike. Just the way that time trial bike is set up, it doesn't U-turn as well. So that means we need to be all the more intentional in getting comfortable with that, making sure that we are safe, we are efficient, and even retaining as much of our speed, as much of our energy as possible. We don't want to come to a complete stop and go around that U-turn very, very slow, because then we have to start over. It not only is safer, it will also enable us to maintain our speed, maintain energy as we make that U-turn. And then black hole training. So we'll talk more about this, but it's super common for triathletes to spend time in that black hole training where we're not going hard enough to really increase that functional threshold, but it's too hard to really reap the benefits of that easy aerobic zone 2 training. So really it's lacking intentionality in our training. It's lacking focus. So we want to make sure that all of our training is done with a high level of intentionality and focus. All right, couple tips for the bike, and again, plenty more of these to come. I will say one of my favorite tips to improve your cycling is to enjoy group rides. Now, this goes against quite a bit of what I just said, but don't neglect the group rides. There are a lot of benefits to them. They're fun. They make the training enjoyable. You do develop some cycling handling skills, so those are good things as well. So enjoy those group rides. Every session you do doesn't have to be indoors on your trainer by yourself. Go out and take advantage of those group rides. Ride with stronger cyclists. This is something that I did a lot in my early days. Not only is it a lot of fun, but it will really make you strong. Go ride with a group that is going to drop you. That's how you know you're riding with strong enough cyclists, is you're getting dropped. And there were some times that I went out on some group rides that I got dropped really early. The route that I did a lot with a group of cyclists was about 15 miles. And there were times where I got dropped like in the first mile. Sometimes those guys were just going hard out of the gate. And if you weren't ready and if you weren't fit, you weren't going with them. So basically what that's going to do, and a great kind of metric to follow, is make it further. Get dropped further down the road next time, and eventually you'll be making it all the way to the finish with that group, and then you'll be the one dropping others. But that is a great way to enjoy cycling and really build your cycling fitness. Along that, road bikes, gravel bikes, getting out there in some different formats, some different environments, great cross training. You're going to still utilize those primary muscles, but you're going to use them in a little different way. So it's some great cross training. And then these are going to provide some opportunities to do a little bit different handling. So that's just going to make you a better, safer cyclist as well. And then, as we talked about all through our 4 Horsemen series, we want to make sure that we are dialing in our race day protocols every time we get on the bike, being cognizant of that, staying up on our hydration, nutrition, our cooling protocols, our pacing, taking advantage of that so that when race day comes around, we know what to do. And then keep in mind, it's all about the bike. And what I mean by that is, especially on race day, it really comes down to how well we execute on the bike. So not necessarily how fast we are on the bike, but it's all about how we execute. So going all the way back to our 4 Horsemen talk, if we nail our pacing, we nail our nutrition, nail our hydration, and nail our cooling protocols on the bike, we have then set ourselves up for a fantastic, fast, enjoyable run. If we don't take care of those things on the bike, we are never going to have our fastest run split. We're never going to have our fastest run split possible. So remember, it's all about the bike. So that's kind of our high-level overview of cycling. And as you can guess, our next topic, we're going to move on to the run. Same thing. It's going to be a high-level overview with lots of things to come in the future. So once again, thank you for joining us. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe. Keep engaging. Keep reaching out. Stay in touch. We want to hear from you. You're part of the tribe, and we want to make sure you feel that way.
Thanks for tuning into Tribe Triathlon, where athletes come together to train smarter, race stronger, and thrive together. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your training partners. Join the Tribe Facebook group to connect with community, and check out tribetriathlon.net to learn more about Tribe coaching. Until then, stay focused, stay consistent, and keep building the tribe.